Welcome back to Project-Adya, the show that takes the big, complicated questions about the human mind and tries to make them feel a little less scary. I'm Nova, and today we are talking about something you are going to do tonight, something you do every single night, something that takes up, well, a third of your entire life, and something that for a very long time science did not take seriously at all. Dreams. We are talking about dreams. And to help us understand what is actually going on when we close our eyes and the brain goes to work, I have with me today Aries. He is a researcher who studies how our ancient survival instincts are still quietly running in the background of the modern human mind. Aries, welcome to Project-Adya.
Thank you, Nova. And I love how you framed that. Quietly running in the background. That is genuinely one of the better one-line descriptions of my entire field I've heard in a while.
I'll definitely put it on the poster. So, let's start at the beginning. For most of the last century, scientists had a very specific, very unexciting answer for what dreams actually are. What was that answer, and why did it fall apart?
Right. So, for a long time, the most popular scientific theory, it was called the activation synthesis hypothesis, which basically means random signals, random story. It said that while you sleep, the brain just starts firing randomly. And then the thinking part of the brain wakes up, sees all this noise, and tries to make a story out of it. Like a child picking up random puzzle pieces and forcing them together. Under this model, your most intense, emotionally overwhelming nightmare is basically just brain static. Meaningless. The brain taking out the trash before the next day. And here is why that never quite added up for me. Evolution, the process that shaped every part of how our bodies and minds work, is not wasteful. It does not keep things around that serve no purpose. And yet, every single complex creature that has deep sleep dreams. If dreams were just noise, evolution would have gotten rid of them a long time ago. The fact that they're still here and still this vivid and emotionally loaded tells us they are doing something important.
So if dreams aren't just, the brain cleaning up, what are they actually doing?
The best way I can explain it is with pilots. Think about how a pilot gets trained. Before they ever fly a real plane with real passengers, they spend hundreds of hours in a flight simulator, a machine that looks and feels exactly like a cockpit, but is completely safe. And the instructor's whole job in that simulator is to create disasters. Engine on fire, controls not responding, severe storm. They do this on purpose, not to scare the pilot, but so that by the time something goes wrong on a real flight, the pilot's body already knows what to do. The panic has already been processed. The hands already know the moves. That is exactly what your brain is doing when you dream. Your subconscious becomes the flight instructor. It creates these incredibly realistic, high-pressure scenarios while you sleep, because it is training you. Our ancestors who dreamed about being chased by a predator were not just having a bad night. Their brain was rehearsing the escape, testing how fast they could react, preparing them for a threat that hadn't happened yet. The dream was the practice run, and the ones whose brains ran those practice runs were the ones who survived.
That makes sense for our ancestors running from tigers, but most of us aren't dreaming about animals. We're dreaming about missing exams, or being chased through office buildings, or showing up somewhere completely unprepared. Why has the content shifted so much?
Because the threats have shifted. The simulator is still running, it just updated what counts as dangerous. Let me give you a really specific example that I think a lot of people will recognize. There is a very common type of dream that researchers see reported across almost every culture. You are some kind of spy or secret agent. You are carrying something incredibly important. You are being hunted by some authority, police, government agents, a faceless organization. You don't fully know what you did wrong, but you know the consequences are enormous. You are hiding, running, trying to decode something before time runs out. Now, the easy thing to say is, oh, too many spy movies. But your brain does not go through the effort of building this full, immersive, emotionally intense experience just to replay something you watched on Netflix. What this dream is actually doing is processing one of the most common anxieties in modern human life: the fear of being truly seen, of being found out. Think about it. Most people are playing slightly different versions of themselves, depending on who they're with. Professional version at work, relaxed version with family, curated version online. That is exhausting to maintain. And the brain takes all of that daily exhaustion, all that energy spent managing how you appear to the world, and turns it into this cinematic, high-stakes scenario where the stakes feel life or death. Because emotionally, for the ego, they kind of are.
Okay, that is a reframe I did not see coming. My Netflix account feels very attacked right now.
Exactly.
But here is the part that I think really unsettles people. Because the simulator does not just put us in danger. Sometimes, it makes us the bad guy. Dreams where we lie to someone we love, or hurt someone, or make a choice that in waking life we would never make. And we wake up feeling genuinely awful about something that didn't even happen. Why does the brain do that?
This is where it gets really interesting. And honestly, a little philosophical. There is a concept I call moral immunology. Basically, the idea that just like your body needs to be exposed to a version of a disease to build protection against it, your mind needs to be exposed to a version of your own worst choices to build resistance to them. Think about how a vaccine works. You don't cure someone by keeping them away from a virus forever. You introduce a safe, controlled version of that virus into their body, so the immune system can learn to fight it. It goes through the whole response: detection, alarm, attack, recovery, and comes out the other side with a blueprint. So the next time the real thing shows up, the body already knows exactly what to do. Your moral nightmares work the same way. When your brain makes you betray a friend in a dream, it does not stop there. It makes you feel it, fully. The guilt, the shame, that heavy sinking feeling in your chest. You wake up and it takes a moment to remember it wasn't real. But here's the thing. Your nervous system went through the entire emotional experience of that choice. The friend is completely fine. Nothing actually happened. But your mind has now felt what that decision costs. It has run the code. And when a real moment of pressure or temptation shows up in waking life, something in you already knows the weight of going the wrong way. The antibodies are there.
There is one more thing I want to ask you about, because I think it is something every single person listening has experienced and probably just written off as weird. The fact that in dreams, the basic rules of the world just do not work. You try to turn on a light and nothing happens. You are running from something, but your legs feel like they are stuck in mud. You open a door in your own home and suddenly you are in a completely different building. Is the brain just glitching? Or is that intentional too?
It is completely intentional. And once you understand why, it actually makes a lot of sense. In waking life, we solve almost every problem using rules we already know. Gravity goes down, time moves forward, actions have predictable consequences. These rules are incredibly useful, but they also mean we rarely have to think from scratch. We rely on what we already know. Now, if the brain wants to really test how well you can handle something completely unexpected, a sudden loss, a situation where nothing is going the way it should, a moment where all your usual tools stop working, it cannot test that using a normal, rule-following environment. So, it removes the rules. Doors lead to the wrong places. People say things that do not make sense. The environment keeps changing. And then it watches. Do you panic and wake up? Or do you stay in it, adapt, find another way through? That is the real test. Not whether you can follow a map, but whether you can navigate when the map is gone. And that kind of mental flexibility, neuroplasticity is the technical term for it, basically meaning how well your brain can bend and adapt instead of breaking, That is one of the most valuable things a mind can develop. The broken dream logic is how the brain builds it.
Aries, I want to close on the question that I think sits underneath all of this, because it is the one that genuinely gives me pause. If the dream is doing all of this, training us, vaccinating us morally, stress testing our ability to adapt, then something inside us is designing all of that. Something is writing the script, building the labyrinth, choosing the exact fear or moral dilemma that you specifically need to face. Who is that? If your own mind is creating the test and playing every character in it at the same time, who was the one actually running the simulation?
That is the question where, if I am being honest, the science puts down its tools and takes a step back. We can measure what happens in the brain during dreams. We can trace which regions activate, which emotions get processed, what patterns repeat. But the question of who or what inside you is wise enough to know exactly which fear to put in front of you tonight, exactly which moral weak spot needs to be tested, that does not have a clean scientific answer yet. What I can say is this: whatever that part of you is, it clearly cares about more than just keeping you alive. A system that only cared about survival would not bother making you feel the guilt of a bad choice you made in a dream. It would not design scenarios specifically to teach you empathy or courage or honesty. A machine only needs your heart to keep beating. It doesn't need you to be, a good person. And yet something in you, every single night, is going to all this trouble to try and make you one. That is not random. That is not noise. That is, whatever word you want to use for it, something that looks very much like it is on your side.
That last part is gonna stay with me for a while.
Good. It should.
Aries, thank you. This is exactly the kind of conversation I started this show to have, where the science opens a door and then quietly admits it doesn't know everything on the other side.
Those are the best conversations. The ones where the answer is interesting, but the question is even better.
Come back soon. I have more questions.
I have a feeling you always will. That is not a complaint.
Noted. And that is a wrap on today's Project-Adya. Tonight, when you close your eyes and the lights go out, just remember, something in there is already getting to work. Building the scenario, designing the test, running the simulation that is made specifically only for you. The question we're thinking about before you fall asleep is who is writing it. I'm Nova. See you next time.